This is Nick Nielsen, Mad Scientist of Muscle, and what I've got for you today here is a review of a really cool piece of training equipment called the squat harness, made by my friends at Rosenblatt. Now, what this is very self-explanatory. It's a harness that is used for squatting. Now, the versatility of this does not end with squatting, however. There's a whole ton of things you can do with this beyond just squatting. But what I want to first do is kind of give you a close-up and give you a look at how it's generally used for its namesake, squatting. So I'll give you a close-in view of it here. Now, what you've got are a couple of handles. This is what you grab onto when you're doing a bodyweight squat, for example. Now, it looks very complicated and complex, but it's actually not. It is very well put together, solidly stitched, nylon webbing, good padding on here. There's no worries about it, whether this thing is going to hold up for you or not. Now, what I can also show you are the clips on here. Now, this is what makes it so versatile for not only bodyweight squatting, but resistance band squatting, and even attaching to a cable machine. So you can do a lot of free weight stuff. You can do cable stuff that involves resistance that comes at an angle. For example, I do a nice reverse lunge or a split squat that pretty well mimics a single leg squat, because it allows you to pull basically up and against diagonal resistance from the cable machine, which I'll show you. Now, the by far best use of this that I've found is actually doing it in conjunction with a barbell squat, and even more specifically, a reverse band barbell squat with the bands here. So it's essentially a two-band barbell squat that's very easy to set up because you're wearing the other set of bands. Now, I will demonstrate that for you as well. You can do it with a regular squat bar. This actually works just fine with a straight bar. I like to use this with a safety squat bar. So not only can I do the reverse band, but I can actually do a Hatfield version of it as well, holding on to the uprights of the power rack, getting resistance out of the bottom, getting less resistance. Basically, I'll have to show you it. But essentially with a reverse band, you're taking resistance off at the bottom where it gets harder, and then with the regular band, you're putting resistance on as you come to the top to make it harder. So by combining these two, you actually get an incredibly effective strength curve out of the exercise. So it'll light up your quads like nothing else. My legs were trashed for a week after doing that version of it. And what I've also found too, in regards to squatting, as I go off on another wild tangent, is this, even though it adds banded resistance to the top, I find it actually really stabilizes the hips. So as you're doing the squat exercise, step on the bands, spread them out. This really mimics that cue of spreading out your hips so that you can really lock those hips in. You feel a lot more stable and a lot stronger when you're doing the exercise, even when you're supposed to be like adding, even as you add resistance to the top of the movement. So this makes it incredibly valuable too. As I rattle on here, I'm going to actually show you how easy this is to put on. So it comes preset. I actually haven't needed to change any of the strap sizes. So get this thing like that. Put your left arm through and put your right arm through. Make sure the straps are in. You're good to go. Now, here's what it looks like sitting on your shoulders at the back. When you use resistance, the bands pull that down and sits it really nicely on your shoulders. It doesn't have any inclination to slide off the shoulders as far as I can see. When you're ready to do some band squatting, step down on the bands, hold on to the straps, and squat. Now, when you start adding in a bar on top, that's when the fun begins. So, careful you don't snap these up and let them off too quickly, because bad things will happen. But that's true of anything with band underneath your feet. Now, I'm going to show you a quick demo of doing this with a safety squat bar, not only in just the banded squat, but also the reverse band squat version as well. Now, when using this with a regular straight bar, where it's something that you can't actually take your hands off of, you're gonna have to use a different kind of setup for this. You're gonna actually have to get your feet on and then step out with your feet pushing down on the bands, because you really don't want to take a hand off the bar, because the bar has a chance of rolling down off your back, and that's definitely not something we want to do. So get that under your feet, get that set. Make sure it's kind of hooked into the feet there, into the shoes. Once you get in, then you can get it set. You're going to have to kind of waddle back a little bit, and then getting out of the position is much easier. As you can see, all you need to do is kick your feet up one at a time, band will fall right off. The squat harness also comes with a couple of additional connector straps. Now these are basically just nylon straps, clip on one end, loop on the other, that attach right back onto these things where the cables were, where the bands were. Those just clip right on. What this allows you to do is cross in front and hook a single cable clip onto both of these. So just like that, put them together, clip them on, and you're good to go. Now this, I recommend you get a little extra length of chain. Go to a hardware store, they're very cheap if your gym doesn't have anything. But this is going to allow you to, like I said, clip onto a single clip here with a cable stack. Now mine is inside the rack, which I find very beneficial, but you don't need it inside a rack. You can do exercises holding on here and split squats, for example. Now, the beauty of this is you get directional resistance. So this is pulling you forward, so you're getting massive activation in the quads as you're doing this. You can also do exercises like a cable good morning, where you do want to kind of sit back, hold onto these straps, and then lean forward. Come back up. So the variety of things you can do with this kind of setup is really fantastic. So one of the other things you can do is pair this with the ramp by the same company, ripped by Rosenblatt. It makes a great steel ramp that I've already reviewed, which I'll post a link to. You can actually use this in conjunction with a squat harness. Squat harness bands right under here, which is a smoothly rounded kind of cutout so that the bands don't catch or potentially cut on here. Now, using this with a cable stack is going to allow you to do calf raises. So I'll demonstrate that real quick here. Set this down here. Get your clips. Both these clips on. And now you got cable standing calf raises. So this is a fantastic way to do calf work, which essentially keeps your hands completely free. So you could not only do this with the cable stack, you could also do this basically with free weights in your hand as well. Now, again, with the directional resistance, you can slide that back, and this is going to give you a different angle as you're doing the exercise. So, just like so. So you can lean back into it, and it gives you a lot of good options for calf training in a home gym situation. All right, so as I mentioned before, this ramp here, made by the same company, has the smooth divots underneath it so that you can actually use this in conjunction with this band setup or any band setup. So this hooks right in here where the smooth part is. Get your feet in, set your feet on, and you're good to go for squats. Snap, crackle, pop squats, I call these. But that ramp gives you good quad flexion, or knee flexion, so you're getting maximum activation of the quads using a band exercise like so. Now, when you're doing these, don't step off the ramp when you're in the top standing position. That's going to shoot this thing. It's going to be under band pressure. So you want to step off, then move this thing. Just like so. And so that is the squat harness, and kind of a small sample of what you can do with it. Now, when you're looking at it, you will notice that it kind of looks like the pulling harnesses you might see in a strongman competition. This can potentially work for that. What you're going to have to make sure to do is hold on here, because unlike those harnesses, which I have one, there's no chest strap across here to keep this from pulling sideways. So it's not going to be quite as stable as a heavy pulling harness, but it can be used as one if you're doing sled work, that kind of thing, dragging stuff, pulling stuff in a harness. This can be effective for that, but you will need to keep your grip on here in order to maintain that positioning on your shoulders. Now, in terms of quality, I have zero complaints about quality on this. This thing is built like a tank. This is going to take whatever bands you want to put on here. What you will notice with the bands is these are just tubing bands with clips on them. These are totally fine. Rather than going for heavier, thick bands, you can just add more of the smaller bands if you've got them. But you will need something that can actually clip on here in order for this to work. Like a regular loop band is not going to work with this unless you get an external clip that can loop through the ends of that bands, which I've tested and it does work just fine, which I'll show you here too. So for example, if you wanted to use a regular type of band that doesn't have the clip on there, what you can do is actually put this through and make sure you're not pinching that, but get that right in there. And all of a sudden now you got something that you can actually clip onto here. Do it on both sides so you get an idea of what that looks like. But I wouldn't do this with really thick bands. It's gonna, unless you have a carabiner that's basically huge and you can mash that band up in enough, you're gonna have to rotate it around so it's not pinching and catching on there. That's the keys. You don't want to slice your band up. So, is it perfect? It's not perfect, but it'll be effective and it'll work well enough. So that you can clip on there like that. And all of a sudden you can go even heavier with this squat harness. That'll give you some good work as you're coming to the top. Now, make sure your bands are good. You don't want one of these buggers snapping as you're coming to the top because, well, you've probably seen enough fail videos of that to know the result of that. But essentially, this harness itself is strong enough to take very steep and band resistance and full-on cable resistance. It's not going to snap just by using basically heavy resistance. So this is the squat harness. You can get these at his site. I'll have a link down below here. These things are really good, especially, as I mentioned before, for combining with regular barbell or safety squat bar squats. When you combine it with the reverse band and the regular band from the bottom, the strength curve is phenomenal. Your quads get no break, your legs are going to be trashed. I absolutely love this thing for doing squats with in that fashion. It's really, really good for bodyweight stuff and for doing the cable bodyweight stuff, adding in cables and adding in free weight at the same time. It's a fantastic way to go as well. For example, like when I was doing the split squats, you can have this thing hooked to the cable, you can have dumbbells in your hand. You're getting the benefits of the straight up and down. You're getting the benefits of the diagonal directional resistance as well. So, bottom line, this is a piece of equipment I can definitely highly recommend. It does have a few limitations. When you're doing angled stuff, this kind of will come in and could pinch a little bit, but to me that's a pretty minor thing. The adjustments, they're pretty easy to make. I mean, this one's just got the slider thing right here. You can adjust that very easily. And the bottom line, I don't have any complaints at all for what this is designed to do and the versatility with which it does it.